السلام عليكم.
السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله. صلى الله وسلم عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي وابن مولاي يا أبا عبد الله. يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة ويا عبرة كل مؤمن ومؤمنة ما خاب والله من تمسك بكم وأمنا من لجأ والتجأ إليكم. يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. قال الله تعالى في محكم كتابه الكريم وقوله الحق وهو أصدق الصادقين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قالوا نعبد إلهك وإله آبائك إبراهيم وإسماعيل وإسحاق إلها واحدا ونحن له مسلمون. So in your gathering with the remembrance of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
As a gift to the soul of Sayyidina wa Mawlana Rasulullah and his honorable and purified progeny, recite the second salawat.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
To hasten the reappearance of Sayyidina wa Mawlana Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
One of the most pressing concerns of the global Muslim community today is an extremely important question that is asked by Muslims all around the world. As the world is developed and as our life is updated on a daily basis, this question and concern becomes more and more vital to be addressed discussed and examined is fiqh, the Islamic judiciary system, the Islamic system of laws, a system that is out of date, or is it a system that can bring solution to the lives of individuals all around the world and throughout time? Is fiqh and the Islamic laws and the Islamic jurisprudence a system that can only offer solution to people who had lived in the time of the Imams and the time of the Ma'soomeen? Is it a system that can only offer solution to people in the century in which they were all confined to one location and they all had the same culture and they all had the same concerns? But now, after the Muslims have been spread out in the entire world, and they have mixed in different cultures, and specifically in the 20th century, is it still possible for fiqh, the same fiqh, to still bring solution to the lives of individuals? Specifically, the Muslims living in the West, the Muslims living in the United States, the Muslims living in Canada, the Muslims living in Europe, the Muslims living in Australia, the Muslims living in the western part of the world, who are part and parcel of society now. However, they are Muslim, and they are practicing believers. They ask an important question. Is it possible for the same fiqh and the same laws that are applicable in Najaf, that are applicable in Qom, that are applicable in Karbala, that are applicable in, for example, Pakistan, that are applicable in Lebanon, the same exact laws would also be applicable to us here? If they offer solution to the lives of people there, would the same laws be the best of solutions for our lives here? And more importantly, in regards to fiqh, an extremely important question, and part of this analysis is the manufacturers of fiqh, the ulama, the seminarians, the scholars. Would they understand our needs, our societies, and our cultures, and the best of ways so that they can offer us such solutions? Because fiqh is meant to bring ease to the lives of people. Fiqh and those laws are meant to put us on a path of leading a life of comfort, tranquility, peace, spirituality. But what happens when now those laws and fiqh itself brings difficulty to us and makes life unbearable? What do we question now? Do we question fiqh? Do we question Islam? Do we question Islamic laws, or do we question the manufacturing of fiqh and those laws? Those are meant to derive those laws from the Quran, from the Sunnah, and from Aql and Ijma' and the other sources that a fatwa is derived from. Who do we blame? Do we blame those who are extracting those laws and delivering them to us, or do we blame the Islamic system? Say, the Islamic system is out of date. We understand that the main source of information, the main source of guidance, the main source of light for all Muslims alike, whether they are Shia, whether they are Sunni, whether they are Sufi, whether they are whatever they may be, is the Quran. And Amir al-Mu'mineen wa Mawla al-Muwahhideen Ali ibn Abi Talib, when describing the Holy Quran, when he speaks of the Holy Quran, he has an extremely important perspective. He says, اعلموا and know أن القرآن حي لم يمت وإنه لآخرنا كما هو لأولنا وإنه يتجدد كما يتجدد الليل والنهار. Look at this beautiful statement by the man who understands the Quran. He says, and know that this book is a book that is alive and it shall never die. How do we treat the Quran? The position of the Quran in our communities, in our lives. Do we treat this book as a book that is alive? Meaning, you want advice. Do you go to a graveyard and stand in front of that grave and say, oh, my father, and he's died 20 years ago, my uncle who's passed away 10 years ago, my older brother who's passed away 5 years ago, please give me advice on, for example, how to find a spouse. This person is dead. You're not going to hear anything from the grave. We sometimes choose to treat the Quran as a book that is not alive. What do I mean? As in, we go for advice to a person who's alive. If we believe the Quran is alive, then I must be able to seek any sort of advice in regards to any aspect of my life and bring solution to my life from the Quran on daily basis. Now you say, well, Sayyidina, the Quran doesn't relate to our lives. The Quran was revealed 1,400 years ago. How am I, for example, going to be inspired by the Quran when it comes to, for example, which school I should put my kids in? This is 2018, New York City. I tell you, the problem is not with the Quran. Because Amir al-Mu'mineen says, إِنَّ الْقُرْآنَ حَيٌّ لَمْ يَمُتْ. The Quran is alive. The Quran is a witness to every era, every decade, every year, every month, every week, every day, every hour, and every minute of your life. The Quran is present. It is our misunderstanding of the Quran, lack of understanding of the Quran, lack of that quality relationship with the Quran, brothers. And tonight is my last night, I have to emphasize on this. We spend time in close proximity with the Quran. The Quran is there, we kiss the Quran. The Quran is our vehicles. The Quran is in our bookshelves. We even sit down and read Surah Yasin, but this is spending time in close proximity with the Quran. We need to spend time, quality time with the Quran. Quality time is what will then illuminate our visions and our lives. And you cannot spend quality time with the Quran unless you know exactly how to understand and study this book. That this book becomes your guide on daily basis. إِنَّ الْقُرْآنَ حَيٌّ لَمْ يَمُتْ. The Quran is hayy, it's alive, it does not die. And it renews itself, according to Amir al-Mu'mineen, he continues to say, and it renews itself every day like the days and the nights renew themselves. When you look at the daytime, you don't say, well, it looks exactly like yesterday. And when nighttime comes, you said, well, it looks exactly like last night. This is a new day. This is a new chance. This is a new part of your life. This life that gets renewed and rejuvenated on a daily basis. We don't complain every time the sun rises and sun sets. Because we understand this is a new beginning. Amir al-Mu'mineen says the Quran renews itself on daily basis. And then he says this statement. And it is as new for the very last of us as it were for the very first of us. You know how infatuated people were with the Quran when Rasulullah would stand in Masjid al-Haram And those were mushriks, and he would recite the Quran and they would be mesmerized. They would convert to the religion of Islam just by hearing Rasulullah recite the verses of the Quran. To a point that the Arabs came to Rasulullah and said to him, Muhammad, we don't want you to come to Masjid al-Haram and read the Quran. He says, why? They say, because you have a spell over us, over our wives and children, or our community. They hear the Quran and the next thing we know they convert to Islam. You're not allowed to read the Quran publicly. And furthermore, they forced their people, because you know Rasulullah would stand in front of the Kaaba and read the Quran. And the Kaaba was the bazaar, was the area that the judges came, was the area where they did trade, politics, everything happened in Masjid al-Haram. And Rasulullah stood there and read the Quran. So people passing in Masjid al-Haram, going about their daily lives, and Rasulullah reading the Quran, what would they do? They'd cover their ears. Because they were genuinely scared. If they heard this Quran, they cannot walk away from it without being attracted. It was like a magnet. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, this Quran shall have the same effect on the very last of us. Why is it that today we hear the Quran and it has no effect on us? I'll tell you why. Very frankly, it is because we have not given the importance to the Quran that it deserves. This Quran has been neglected. One of the ulama, he has a book, Tafsir al-Quran, very famous contemporary scholar. In the introduction, he writes this beautiful story. He says there was a reciter, Qari Quran in our city. And this Qari al-Quran in our city, every time you saw him in his free time, let's say a lunch break, he's sitting in the car, in the carriage, whatever it may be, he wouldn't sit there and talk about nonsense. He would open a pocket Quran and he would read. Every time there was a program, he would be the one beginning the program with the recitation of the Quran. He said to an extent that this person, this mujtahid, this alim, he says, I would be jealous of his relationship with the Quran. We would envy him for this relationship that he had with the Quran. He said this man went to Mecca for Hajj. He came back and I observed him for a month and there was this huge gap now between him and the Quran. They call him Hajji, come and read the Quran. He says, no thank you, call somebody else. He says, I no longer would see him open the Quran and read the Quran. Traveled together, not even once he opened the Quran to read the Quran. He said to a point where we were in a gathering, they began to read the Quran, this man got up and left. He says, I noticed this. After the program I went to him, I said, I have an urgent discussion with you. What is the discussion? He says to him, what's happened to you? This relationship that you had with the Quran now has completely shifted. He says, no, it's nothing. He says, no. I have observed you now. I know for a fact something has happened. You don't have the same relationship with the Quran. Tell me. He says, I'll tell you. But I don't want you to speak of this until the day I die. He says to him, I give you my word. He says, I went to Mecca. I was coming out of my building to go to Masjid al-Haram. I saw a little bookstore. He says, I went to the bookstore. I opened a book, an old book. I opened it and I began to read the poetry. I was mesmerized by the poetry. Beautiful poetry. So I told the owner, I would like to buy this book. How much is it? This book of poetry. He says to him, for example, it's such and such. He says, I put my hand in my pocket to take out money to pay him. And I realized I wasn't carrying my cash. So I said to him, you know what, keep this book before me and I will pay you. I'll come back and get it tomorrow. So he said the bookseller told me, give me your Quran and take this book. I don't want this book in my library. So I said to him, why? He says, because this is the book of poetry of Yazid ibn Muawiyah. I don't want it in my bookstore. I would rather have the Quran. Keep the Quran here and take this book. So he said it was that moment that I told myself, I have so many Qur'ans. I can always get a Qur'an. He says, I put my Qur'an and I took that book. He says, from that day, every time I want to read the Qur'an, I can't. From that day, every time they recite the Qur'an, this book that I was mesmerized with, it's as if the Qur'an is telling me, I don't want you to have a relationship with me. You know, the closer you get to somebody, when you have a fallout with them, the more there's an emotional scar. You create a bond with someone, with one of your children, with your spouse, with a friend. You get so close and intimate, then you betray them. The scar is much greater than somebody who I don't really know. We don't treat the Qur'an as an alive entity with a soul, where we can touch its soul, we can understand it. Ahl al-Bayt and the Madrasa of Ahl al-Bayt trained us that the Qur'an is a gift from Allah amongst you. Speak to Allah through this Qur'an. This Qur'an is alive. On the 10th of Muharram, what made Hur switch sides? He came to the camp of Aba Abdullah al-Husayn and he describes the camp as بين تاليا للقرآن وراكعا وساجدا. This is what the camp of Imam al-Husayn was doing. Reading the Qur'an in ruku' or sujood. The medal, the trophy that Imam al-Husayn gives to Habib ibn Madahir al-Asadi ridwanullahi alayhi on the 10th of Muharram, what does he say to him? أشهد أنك كنت تقرأ القرآن وتختم القرآن في كل يوم وليلة. Every day he would recite the Qur'an from cover to cover. Those were the companions of Ahl al-Bayt. Those are the Shia of Ahl al-Bayt. Those are the individuals that we must emulate. Those are our examples. Therefore the Qur'an lives amongst us. It's the source of knowledge. The Qur'an doesn't get old. It is our relationship with the Qur'an. The way we have abandoned the Qur'an, the way we have ignored the Qur'an that puts us in the situation that we are in today. So we suffer. We say this fiqh is no longer relevant to us. That's because we have neglected the Qur'an. And allow me to say this. It's not just our communities. It's not just our children. It's not just the youth. It's not just the elders. It's not just the gray hair. Even the hawza, the seminary, the ulama, the scholars, we are all together and we are all in this together. Wallahi. Today, at the heart of the seminary, the hawza, the very first thing that you see a scholar, a alim, a faqih, a mujtahid is extremely powerful in is fiqh. It's usul. It's philosophy. But when it comes to the Qur'an, today in Qom there are more than 1,000 classes of fiqh, but very few classes of Qur'an. And this is something that we suffer from. We are paying the price of high value for this. We're paying a heavy price for this. And our madaris, and our Sunday schools, what do we teach our children? We teach them ahkam, we teach them fiqh, we teach them so many things. But we don't create this special bond with them and the Qur'an. Wallahi brothers, if you create that bond with the Qur'an, the ahkam will come. The fiqh will come, the laws will come, because they have the Qur'an. But if they don't have the Qur'an, as much as you teach them ahkam, they will not have their weight in their lives and their significance in their lives unless the Qur'an becomes part of their personality. Anyhow, so the source, the main source of the Qur'an, the main source of our knowledge is there, it's vibrant. But why is it that sometimes those laws are no longer applicable, are no longer relevant? And there are many discussions now within our communities of people asking questions, how is it that this fiqh has now become out of date and we have to deal with it on a daily basis? I'll give you several examples that are part of the community, an eminent part of the community. Number one, it is the crescent of the month of Ramadan and the Hilal controversy of Eid. When it starts, when it ends. Every single year, every community you go, the first question, second question, they ask you, Sayyidina, what's the story behind the Hilal? How is it that this fiqh is not relevant to us? Do they not ask? Of course they do. They ask you, let's get more in depth. The diya, which is the blood penalty money, for death, for murder, for amputation of limbs, is very clear in Islamic law. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, if somebody accidentally murders someone, then they have to pay a diya. A diya is the blood money. If somebody accidentally cuts somebody's arm, there is a specific blood money, diya, penalty you have to pay to whom? If the person has died, he's been killed, and obviously this is by mistake, this is not on purpose, then you have to pay the diya to his inheritors. They asked Rasulullah, what is the diya, ya Rasulullah? He said, the diya is 100 golden dinars, or 1,000 is 1,000 dinars, golden dinars, or 10,000 silver dirhams. It is 100 camels, or 100 cows, or 1,000 sheep. Today, this is how we calculate diya. Okay. Now here I am, I have to pay this diya in today's world, and I come and say, well, the 1,000 golden coins is going to be pretty expensive. The 1,000 sheep's also going to be pretty expensive. I live in Saudi Arabia, I can do 100 camels. Why don't I offer the 100 camels? One of them becomes 30,000, the other one becomes 70,000, the other one becomes 60,000, the other one becomes 100,000. So which one do we choose? Obviously, at the time of Rasulullah, this is what people traded with. They didn't have anything else. Rasulullah wants to make it easy for them. Back then, 100 camels was equivalent to, there was no other price. This was the fixed price. 100 camels, 100 cows equal to 1,000 golden dinars. 1,000 golden dinars equal to 10,000 silver dinars. But today, when the prices for each one is different, how do we choose that? Do we say, well, we do what Rasul... No. The ulama have said, today we have to make one currency, one method of paying diya. And that currency should not be something that changes in different societies and different cultures in different parts of the world. So the best way to go about it is what? Using gold, for example. Using the dollar. Another example is the way that we deal with, for example, medicine. There are hadiths and traditions that tell you you should not drink so much water at night. It's makruh to drink water. At night, don't drink so much water. It's makruh. You go to your doctor and he tells you, drink a lot of liquids. Drink as much water as you can. Tell him, I can't. He says, why? He says, it's makruh. Why? It's not recommended in my religion. Well, you don't have an understanding of how to live healthy then. Your religion is giving you the wrong advice. Is it possible for the religion of Islam to give you the wrong advice? Then you come and you realize, under what circumstances were the imams and the ma'sumin instructing their followers and community, don't drink so much water at night? when it would have to take them 15 minutes to walk from their bedrooms to their bathrooms in the middle of the night. Now, if you have to walk 15 minutes to a bathroom, you're not going to use the bathroom. And if you don't use the bathroom, the damage then on your body becomes more than not drinking water. So the Imam say to them, don't drink so much water at night because it becomes so difficult for you to go to the bathroom, for you to wake up in the middle of the night and go. Therefore you ruin your body more by drinking water at night. But today, when you're 3 steps away from your bathroom at home, would this law change or will it not change? Is this hadith up to negotiation and discussion and analysis or no? Absolutely. And that is the job of the hawza. That is the job of ijtihad. Or else why do we have ijtihad and hawza and mujtahids and fiqh and discussions every day, every single day? And it's recommended today, if you go to the hawza, you find one nationality of people, only Arabs, only Iranians, only Afghanis, only Pakistanis, only Indians. No. At the hawza you find every single nationality. Why? Have we wondered why? It's because the different nationalities and different cultures that come together with different understandings and opinions and interpretations can help develop new theories, can help in understanding those laws, can help in manufacturing laws that have worldly solutions, worldwide solutions, global solutions. But if everybody in the hawza was, for example, from the city of Najaf, then I would say those laws would only be applicable for the people of Najaf. Because that's how they understood the world. But when there is a global community of scholars and fuqaha and mujtahids that come together with different understandings and backgrounds, then they can create global laws and global understandings. And I will give you a few examples and conclude for this evening. Unfortunately, we started with a delay, so we have to make up for it. The scholars and ulama, on daily basis, brothers and sisters, in the seminary and in the hawza, engage in debate, in positive debate, of how is it that this fiqh can rejuvenate? How is it that this fiqh can be understood, re-understood, and re-examined, and re-researched, and rejuvenated? And I'll give you several examples in almost every aspect of fiqh, and how the opinion of scholars has changed, and our Islamic judiciary system, and our fiqh in itself has updated itself. The system has updated itself. One, the area of Islamic economy. Obviously, it's a very important area of our lives. It's an important part of the life of the Muslim community. There was a period of time that there was a consensus amongst the ulama that you cannot take interest from an Islamic bank, but you can take interest from a non-Muslim bank. And this is an eminent period in the contemporary life of individuals, and you know this. So the people, the community of believers, the mu'mineen, said, well, who's going to keep his money at a bank that I can't take my interest from? So the money all shifted to non-Muslim banks. In fact, there was a period that Muslim banks, in Muslim countries, nobody kept money in there. But then all the British banks and the French banks and the different non-Muslim banks came and started their chapters in the Middle East, and everybody was going there, lining up to put their money, to collect interest from them. So they came to the Maraja, they said, you know what, the Islamic banks are gone. Nobody's keeping their money in the Islamic banks. And those non-Muslim banks, there's a line of people standing to put their money in there and receive interest. The fact that riba is haram did not become halal. Riba is haram. Taking interest from a Muslim is haram. That didn't change. But the strategy of our ulama in developing a solution so that it does not hurt the Islamic community changed. The bankers came, the ulama came, they spoke and they came out with a new plan. A strategy where people can now reinvest their money into Islamic banks and become partners with the bank. Why call it interest? The bank is going to do business with your money and give you your part in being a partner with the bank. It's the same process. The contract changed. Now people reinvested their money in the banks. And I don't mean one alim or two ulama. The vast majority of our ulama came to this realization that this is going to hurt the Muslim community. Another example. There was a period of time where they would tell you wearing black is makruh. Until one of our ulama came and did a study on this. And he says, why is it that wearing black, obviously I don't mean wearing black for Imam al-Hussein, no. But wearing black generally is a makruh color for you to wear. And obviously you say that to people that like to wear the color black and they'll laugh at you and say, what's wrong with me wearing black? I like wearing black. I like to wear a black suit, for example, when I go to work. So how is that makruh? How is that disliked by God? What God cares about what color I wear? Pretty pathetic, huh? So one of our ulama came and he did a research. And he said the color and attire, when the imam says don't wear black, it was the time that the color black was the sign of Bani al-Abbas. So the imam says, don't wear black. This is the sign of Bani al-Abbas. Instead wear green. Today, that's why you see some people who go to ziyarah, they wear green. They have a green scarf. You tell them why, they say mustahab. This alim says this was specific to a specific time and place, and it has a specific reason behind it. It's because the black was used by Bani al-Abbas as a sign. The imams told them, do not wear it so that you do not become an example. You do not become like Bani al-Abbas in the example of how they dress. And that period is over. Now if you wear black, you wear green, you wear white, it's all the same. Another area of extreme importance when it comes to the re-understanding of fiqh and the way that the ulama have re-evaluated fiqh is by assessing the circumstance in which the law is developed in. And this is something you all know. Salah is the most important pillar of our faith. There is nothing above salah, right? And salah is wajib. And if you can pray on time, you must pray on time. You don't say, well, I have 6 hours, so why should I pray on time? No. وَيْلٌ لِلْمُطَّلِفِّفِينَ وَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنْ صَلَاتِهِمْ سَاهُونَ. You have to pray on time and you have to give the utmost importance to salah. But here you are about to pray, and the ulama always use this example in the hawza. Somebody's drowning in front of you. What do? You say, well, I have to pray. Let him drown. Because salah is wajib. At that period, if you continue the salah, number one, it's void, according to the ulama. Number two, it's haram. Why? Give me your undivided attention. This might be a little difficult, but I'll give you a little taste of the hawza. Why is it void? It's because you're not asked for it to do. For example, you stand, you say, I want to pray Salat al-Thursday. Wajib qurbatana. What's this Salat al-Thursday? I've made it up. Alhamdulillah. I've made a Salah up. It's called the Salah of Thursday. Let's hypothetically say. And I pray it every Thursday, 9 a.m. He says, but where did you come up with this? Nobody. I made it on my own. He said, did Allah ask you for it? No. Of course, in the state of if it's mustahab salah, you can. But if you say, no, this is wajib, then we say you are manufacturing laws of your own. You're not asked for it, so it's void. You're doing something on your own. Huh? You go and you do 7 rounds of tawaf, then you say, I'm going to do 3 extra ones, just for the fun. Nothing. You're wasting your time. Why is it haram? Because Allah says you must save this life. And once this is the most important task for you to do, you cannot avoid the demand of Allah from you to save this life, no matter what else you do. So whatever you do at that time will become haram. Whether it's salah, whether it's tasbih, whether it's whatever it may be. Your presence here is haram, your presence here is wajib. That same salah, if the circumstance is there, is mustahab, when it's the beginning of the time, it is wajib. Then, if somebody is drowning, it becomes haram. Because why? The circumstance has changed. The month of Ramadan begins. What do you have to do? You have to fast, right? If you are ill, do you fast? You cannot fast. And Ayatollah Khoi says, if you fast and you are ill and the doctor is telling you cannot fast, but you say, I don't care about what my doctor says, I will still fast, that fast is batil. So you still have to make up for it. This is a fatwa from Ayatollah Khoi. It says, because at that time it is not required of you to fast. Why? Because the Quran is clear. If you're traveling, you cannot fast. If you are ill, you cannot fast. The Quran makes no specifications. So you say, well, I'm traveling, I don't feel like making it up in the winter, so I'll just fast. It's just hunger and thirst. You have to still make up for it. Siyam is wajib. If you are ill, you cannot fast. It's as simple as that. Now when it comes to other laws, other regulations, whether it is khums, whether it is hajj, whether it's zakat, whether it's all those laws, brothers and sisters. If the circumstances change, then the law also changes. And that is the beauty of the religion of Islam, and specifically the madrasa of Ahl al-Bayt, because it's kept the process of ijtihad open for people. For us to go, to investigate, research, and come up with new theories. And I have to say this in conclusion. Not everything that Jawad Qazwini may say from the minbar is meant for you to follow immediately in your lives. And by Jawad Qazwini, I don't mean specifically me, it could be Dr. Dungarsi. But it's meant for it to stimulate your mind as well. It's meant for it to trigger in you to go and read a book, to ask further questions, to investigate things on your own. Because brothers, the religion of Islam and the madhab of Ahl al-Bayt, as it was developed by Ahl al-Bayt, does not develop sheeps. Does not develop people who think it's a vending machine, you know. You punch in, it's not Google. You ask everything from Google. No. It's meant for you to be people of intellect. It is meant for us to give value to knowledge, give value to ilm, give value to research, give value to investigating new Islamic theories and research centers. And from here, on the day of Arbaeen, on the day that Imam al-Hussein stood against injustice, and the day that his Za'ireen go and salute him, I tell you, the most important of our tasks and the biggest of our missions is to be able to bring more awareness with aql and intellect to our communities. Because a community with knowledge is a community that is alive. A community with knowledge is a prosperous community. A community with knowledge is a community that does not get shaken up by different circumstances. Because ilm is nur. And nur will protect you against every darkness. And that was the mission of Imam al-Hussein, to bring nur. Ya rahmatullah al-wasi'ah, wa ya baba najat al-ummah. He is the torch of light. Inna al-Hussein misbah al-huda. Misbah al-huda is only done with knowledge. It's only done with ilm. Wa safinatun najat. And he is your salvation. Salvation in what sense? in the sense that this life comes with so much difficulties. But a person with ilm, as a person that goes through them with success. Amir al-Mu'mineen says there are two thirsty people in this world, طالب علم وطالب مال. One person chases money, they'll never have enough. And another person that chases ilm, and they'll never have enough, but there is one difference. The sahibul mal has to always look how to protect his mal. He has money, he has real estate, he has stocks. He has to protect them in so many different ways. But sahibul ilm, the one that carries ilm, the ilm will protect him. Wherever he goes, alim, wherever he goes, all he needs to do is speak. He doesn't have to worry about this ilm running away from him somewhere, or somebody stealing his ilm. And this is the path that Ahl al-Bayt want us to be on. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to honor us with the ulum that get us closer to His remembrance. Ask Allah to honor us with the ilm that gets us closer to the Quran. Ask Allah to honor us with the ilm that gets us closer to His obedience. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the ma'rifah, to understand the value of our imams, to walk on the path of Muhammadin wa Ali Muhammad, to allow us to be amongst the za'ireen of Muhammadin wa Ali Muhammad, to amongst us to be amongst those who receive the shafa'ah of Muhammadin wa Ali Muhammad. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. أسألك اللهم وندعوك ونقسم عليك باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم يا الله 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 يا مجيب دعوة المضطرين يا غياث المستغيثين. Oh Allah, every man and woman present in this majlis, with a haja, give us our hajat. With a sin, forgive our sins. اللهم أدخل على أهل القبور السرور. اللهم شافي وعافي كل مريض. اللهم احفظ زوار الحسين. اللهم اجعلنا من زوار الحسين. اللهم عجل لمولانا الفرج والعافية والنصر. اللهم اجعلنا من أنصاره وأعوانه. Let us now rise in conclusion and recite this dua all together. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم
كل نبيك الحجة الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقاعدا وناصرا ونبيا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وإلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات. Let us gift this series of our Muharram Majalis, our Muharram Azadari, our Muharram services to the soul of all the mu'mineen and mu'minat that have passed away from this gathering, from this community, and all the mu'mineen and mu'minat around the world, all the shuhada, all the ulama, and all the servants of Imam al-Hussein. Al-Fatiha ma'a as-salawat. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.